I am joined by Valerie, the founder of Val Eves, a sustainable accessories brand that is turning heads and redefining what it means to be both stylish and conscious. Valerie is one of my amazing clients, and in this episode, we pull back the curtain on what it really takes to build a sustainable accessories brand from the ground up. We talk about the highs, the lows, and everything in between. Quick PSA before we dive in. If you've been thinking about launching your own sustainable fashion brand or sustainable accessories brand, I wanted to let you know that my Launch Your Brand course is still available. It's the complete A to Z roadmap with proven strategy, sustainable tactics, and plug-and-play resources on how you can launch a sustainable and profitable fashion brand. Since expanding my business so that I'm not only working with sustainable fashion founders, but also purpose-driven businesses more generally, I've had a few people ask, do you still work with sustainable fashion brands? The answer is absolutely yes, and Valerie's brand is the perfect example for that. She went through the Launch Your Brand course to build her business foundation, make sure she was following the right strategies, tactics, and templates from the get-go. We also worked one-on-one on a consulting basis to apply this and customize it to her business. And I also helped source her production partners as well. If you would like to potentially work together, you can check out the Launch Your Brand course at recloseted.com/LYB. The link will be down below for you. And if you use code podcast, you will get a cheeky discount. If you're also interested in working together on a one-on-one consulting capacity, I take on a limited amount of clients every single year and spots just open up. So you can check out more information and book a complimentary discovery call at recloseted.com/consulting or click the link down below. I am so proud of what Valerie has built and accomplished, but it wasn't a linear journey to get here. She really candidly shares and overviews that. So in true Confessions of a Conscious CEO fashion, she is going to share her highs, her lows, everything in between, as well as the really valuable lessons she has gained facing the challenges she's encountered over the past few years. Without any further ado, let's dive in, and I'm so excited to welcome Valerie to the podcast. Valerie, welcome to Confessions of a Conscious CEO. It has been such a long time coming for you to be on here.
Thank you so much, Lena. And I say this all the time, but just this platform that you've created and the fact that you're helping to uplift sustainable entrepreneurs is truly amazing. So I'm just so happy to be a part of it.
And so let's start with Val Eves. What inspired you to start it? I want to hear the full story.
Yes. So like you said at the beginning, it's been a long time coming. I formally found Val Eves in 2022. I remember at one point where I was just like buying things just because I could, but reflecting like, okay, this actually isn't a good habit. And I noticed that maybe had a slight shopping addiction. And I watched a couple documentaries and videos, and that's how I found out about sustainable fashion, slow fashion, and that entire world. Really made me kind of take a step back and reflect on my own impact, my consumer choices and everything. It's one of those things where I was like, okay, there's this issue. A lot of us are taking part of it, and a lot of us also don't understand the full breadth of the ramifications of our shopping habits. There was that end. But on the other end, there also was a gap in regards to the actual products and what's actually out in the marketplace. There's not a ton of sustainable fashion designers or sustainable brands. And the ones that are sometimes a bit obscure as to what actually makes them sustainable. The more you look into it, the more you understand exactly why. It's really complicated. That whole quest for knowledge transitioned into me wanting to create something of my own and seeing if I'm able to build something sustainably and like what the roadblocks and barriers were there. And ultimately to kind of basically share my story with other designers and other people who want to create something that doesn't contradict or go against their morals and what they hope for the world. So that's ultimately what led me to actually wanting to create a sustainable brand and how that transitioned into Val Eves.
Talking more about Val Eves, you are starting with sustainable, artisan-made, amazing, high-quality fans, and you can see them on the table there. It looks amazing. Why did you decide to start with fans?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I will say I had a moment where I was really questioning what it means to release sustainable clothing and do sustainable fashion, especially when we already have so many clothes. I'm a huge proponent of buying secondhand and vintage. The idea of starting my brand out with clothing didn't feel morally correct for me. When I stepped into that realm, I would like to be a bit more innovative in that space. So definitely stay tuned for that. In regards to the actual product and what I want Val Eves to be, I ultimately do aspire for Val Eves to be respectful. And I feel like when you look at a lot of different brands who have risen throughout the past couple of decades, they always have one thing that they're known for, or a couple different things on their repertoire that they're known for. One gap that I noticed was that nobody was pushing hand fans. Hand fans are an amazing and underutilized accessory, especially here in the States. Ultimately, the reason I chose hand fans comes down to 3 key points. One, super practical. I live in Texas right now, so it's May, so it's kind of temperate. By the time we get to June, July, we're going to hit those 100-degree stretches. So having a hand fan handy is super practical and functional. Secondly, there's a lot of cultural history to hand fans, and I found that so intriguing and so inspiring. I took a lot of time to just research into the history of hand fans and like where they came from. If you look across almost the entire world, every single civilization and culture has them. And it's like really interesting to see. We also see the association with luxury and leisure and enjoying yourself. So I feel like as a sustainable brand, it serves itself or lends itself really well to that whole idea. Lastly, hand fan is a pretty perfect symbol for this entire movement and what we're doing here. It's getting hot. We need to cool ourselves down. It's not only with the active choices that we make every single day, but also what we advocate for. Of course, our consumer choices. So when someone has a Valerie fan, I hope that it carries that weight and significance for them as well.
We're going to talk more about the artisan craftsmanship of your fan because it really is so high quality. Before we get there, let's talk about how your brand is redefining sustainable fashion because historically, I would say a lot of sustainable fashion brands are kind of granola. They're kind of kitschy. They're aligned with your values, but maybe not aligned with your taste or your aesthetic. You are really trying to bridge both, which I think is so cool. So can you share how you are redefining sustainable fashion with your brand?
Absolutely. I think that sustainable fashion has gotten a bad rep over the years. To what you're saying, a lot of times it feels like a box that brands kind of have to fit within. But I really aspire for About Eves to make sustainable fashion aspirational. When we think about luxury and the future of luxury, we'll probably go back to its original roots, which are based in artisanal craft and tailoring and customizations and that slow fashion process. Throughout the history, that's what has defined luxury. We're kind of at a point right now where the definition is slipping. There's a bit of confusion as to what actually defines luxury in the 2020s. With Val Eves, I aspire for us to get back to what luxury actually means and to what I said, make sustainable fashion aspirational. It would be beautiful if sustainable fashion was synonymous with luxury.
Yeah. And speaking of luxury, a lot of the times people just think I'm going to price it really, really high end, but the product itself isn't high end. In your case, I can confidently say this is the most beautiful, high quality product. I am so proud of it. I know you are so proud of it too. And as we were working together, we could have easily sourced from Alibaba or bought something that's cheap and cheerful and made out of plastic or whatever, but we didn't go that route. And so let's talk about the craftsmanship and the beauty behind your product. Can you tell us what makes your fans so special?
Absolutely. So what you said, Selena, it's definitely been a process. That's been the biggest learning journey for me, just the different barriers when it comes to sourcing. Then also learning patience and understanding that timing and finding the right partnerships is paramount for actually building the foundation that we want. Basically, to the artisanal craft and history and story behind Val Eves, our fans are crafted in Spain. For those of you who don't know, Spain is one of the fan-making capitals of the world, renowned for their premium fan products. I had the opportunity to travel to Spain 2 times on sourcing trips. So I was able to meet with different ateliers and understand their process. We met with a number of really interesting ones, but we ultimately landed with an atelier that has hundreds of years of experience, family owned. It was really interesting when we went there. We were able to meet the grandmother and the mother and even one of the grandkids, as well as the partner that we're working with. That just speaks to what we're actually trying to build here. We're trying to build something that's long lasting, that actually has quality and premium aspects built into it. So down to the Tatibo wood that we use on this and the black lacquer that we use to make sure that it's like scratch resistant, also has that like luxurious feel and sheen. We really did want to make sure that the base of the fan was in alignment with actual historical fan making processes. So those of you who get them, you're getting a great quality product. Beyond that, there's a lot of different ways you can go about creating a design on a product. But I'm an artist, I'm a creative. I've always appreciated and celebrated the arts. And I feel like fashion is wearable art. With fans, it was a really good opportunity to blend those two worlds together. All of our designs are hand painted. We were able to find a hand fan painter in Spain. We worked really closely with her to create this product and this design in a way that we felt would be replicable and appealing to a whole lot of people. We're launching with this first black design here. We also have this green design. So they both have like gold little swooshes. I feel like that's very fitting for a fan, you know? The last part that I would also mention here is that we are a soul fashion brand. Like I mentioned, everything is handmade. The beauty of going to Spain and actually seeing the process. And I'm excited to actually share a bunch of clips of that because it's honestly just inspiring to watch. There's a lot of love and intentionality behind each design. But yeah, that's a bit about the craftsmanship. And when you get one of the fans, you'll see that it has this little word mark that says Abanicos Español, and that means Spanish fans. Basically, with every single one of these values fans, you will know that there's a promise of quality. We make sure that each of them are also sold with a dust bag to make sure it's protected. But you can also buy one of our leather pouches separately, which will add an additional layer of protection and a little bit of sauce as well. I'm really proud of this product. It's so beautiful. And as a creative, as an artist, as a designer, actually seeing them in person and getting to this point and everything is just so inspiring. And I'm just ready to go.
Yeah, I am so proud of you. And I also want to dive deeper into the specifics of it. You did a really good job overviewing it, but because I've been along the journey with you, came with you to these trips, I know exactly how much goes into this. So let's talk about it. Do you want to talk a little bit about the wood and also the fabric that's being used and the paint that's being used?
Absolutely. I think it's really about just being intentional about all of our decisions. One of the things I learned really early on in the journey is that you have to understand what you can control and what you can't control yet. I'm still a small company, so there's certain levers I can't pull, but I'm sure down the line as I build my network and stuff, there's things I will be able to do. Like Selena said, we choose very premium materials. So first we started with sativa wood. This is PEC certified, so we know that it's sourced sustainably and they make sure they're not deforesting for the sake of getting this wood. We use premium cotton for the fan just to make sure that there's longevity to it. There's the luxurious feel. And even the way the paint lays on it as that artisanal craft. Like I said before, I want this to be a fashion accessory. I don't want it to just be a play toy. So this kind of lends itself to that as well. Lastly, we have the black lacquer here. This was a really cool feature that we found actually only with this atelier that we ended up working with. It's scratch resistant. So in terms of longevity, that's something that's really important. For sustainability, we want to make sure that the products last for a really long time. Of course, that's also why I sell it with the dust bags, because we want to make sure that you keep them well. Every single Values fan will come with care instructions as well. So we want to just leave you to figure it out when you're out. It definitely was a journey. You have to ask a lot of questions. And if they don't know, you have to ask okay, so who does know, and have to investigate a little bit more. I will say sometimes there are certain places and parts of the sourcing journey where it does get a bit opaque and obscure. But I said before, those are areas to kind of flag to revisit in the future. So when you do have the ability to pull those levers, you take that action, you take those steps to do that just to make sure that you're aligning yourself long term with the brand is meant to be.
We will talk more about partners and all your lessons learned. But before we get there, I just wanted to say we will share behind the scenes of actually how the fans are made, because that really blew my mind. In my mind, I was like, okay, it's probably all machines or whatever. But there are machines that cut up the wood and make it the shape. But then do you remember how there was that woman that took the cotton pieces, glued it on, and then stuck them together? That blew my mind. It was so therapeutic to watch.
No, and you could tell she did this. She knew exactly what she was doing. Everything. And that's just the beauty of working with artisans and everything. They do their crafts so well and they can answer all of our questions, even down to the wood cutting process. They were explaining to us the way they have to slice the wood and everything, explaining the hurt of the wood and how it's really important to keep that in mind when you're cutting it to make sure that reduce the imperfections in the fan staves, There's so many different elements and generational knowledge that comes with artisanal fan making, which is why we were intentional about finding an atelier and a partner that had that knowledge and was willing to share and leverage that for this brand. So we're in a great place. I'm honestly so overjoyed and excited the way it's gone. But like Selena said, it hasn't been a linear journey, but where we are right now, we're exactly where we're meant to be.
Yeah, you are exactly where you're meant to be. But that being said, this entire journey came with its ups and downs and hiccups, because it always does. So let's get into that, because that's what we're all about on this podcast. Let's begin with the very, very beginning, because you didn't come from a quote unquote traditional fashion background, but you were really passionate about getting this started. You had the idea to do it. How did you go from it being idea to then you actually taking action and doing it?
I definitely came from a non-traditional fashion background. I went to Chapel Hill. I did public health there. I still work for a healthcare company now. So that's been my background my entire life. And I come from a whole bunch of healthcare practitioners and professionals. That also probably plays a role in my moral code and I'm making sure I keep the wellness and well-being of people in mind. The transition from working corporate, which I'm still doing currently, to building Val Eves came from the desire to make sure I'm flexing my muscles and my different talents in a way that actually inspires me as well. It's one of those things where when you're working for a company, no matter how much you love it, you still know that's not your dream. You also know there's other things that you can do and contribute to the world. So I feel like I was in a place where I was like, okay, I can continue to 100% focus on this job, which I actually really do enjoy. Or I could do that, also build something that could also open up a world that really do want to exist in and actually want to contribute to. It was a bit of serendipity, a lot of boldness, a lot of faith, but at the end of the day, it came with a purpose.
Yeah, amazing. And I've always respected that you go out and invest in skills and knowledge if you don't have that. I am so honored that we got to work together, but I wasn't the first person you worked with. I'm sure other people have had experiences too where they invest in something and it's maybe not to their expectation, but they're like, oh, I already spent this money, I'll just see it through kind of things. Do you want to talk about how you dealt with that?
That's a really great question. When I started the LLC process and give it some momentum with value, so I'm like, okay, I need to find a production partner. And I am not classically trained in fashion, especially fashion business. So that's why it was important for me to find a consultant or a production partner to help guide me through this journey. I remember when I first moved here, I actually found a company that I was so excited for. They were actually even based here in Austin. I was like, oh my God, it's meant to be. The longer I worked with them, the more I realized that doing things sustainably is really hard. And what I'm doing here actually is the exception and not the rule. So what you were saying in the beginning of the interview, there's so many routes you can go when you're trying to create a product, whether you want to do white label, whether you want to do something like Alibaba. There's a lot of, I won't say shortcuts per se, but there's different ways you can go about things that will create a nice product, but maybe not the product that you want. Working with that team, I began to figure out that my project was a special project. The partners working with me, they knew about sustainability, but they didn't necessarily live and breathe it. It felt like even earlier discussions, we were already talking about shortcuts and different ways we can get this to market super quick. But that's not the goal here. We're trying to bring it to market correctly. That was a difficult period for me, realizing that I had to stop just because I was so excited. But I was really lucky because basically just changed my Google search to sustainability consultant and up dropped We're Closeted. And I reached out to Selena. I think it was really close to when you were actually going to close up for new clients. And you're like, okay, I would really love to work with you. You got to let me know in the next couple of weeks. I meditated on it and looked through your page. We had a couple more conversations and it felt right. And to be honest, Selena, that's been one of the best decisions I've made with values because like I said before, you don't know what you don't know. You were able to coach me through not only the design process, but actually building the business and all those different steps that are so important. You were essentially my first team member, and it was really helpful to have someone to work with on this and to brainstorm and ask questions because where we are now is definitely not where we started. It's definitely been a number of different iterations, a number of different conversations and trade-offs that we had to make sure that we weren't compromising on what we wanted values to be. And the way you launch to market is so important. And I just never wanted it to be confused or misconstrued as to what our values are here. That's how I found Selena though. So that's to you.
Oh, thank you. Well, thanks also for being so transparent about it. I think it takes a lot of courage to recognize that, ooh, I feel like this isn't for me. And especially when you're putting so much trust and almost these authority figures because they are supposed to be the experts, it can take a lot of self-confidence and knowing yourself to be like, I don't think this is for me and I'm going to actually do something else. So props to you. That can be really hard to do. But I always say if something's not for you, don't stick around because it's holding you back from something that will be better. And you just have to have the courage and the time to go and find that.
100% agree.
And so speaking of the atelier process, the process of making fans is such a lost art. This was done centuries and centuries ago. It's passed down generation to generations, like you mentioned. There aren't a lot of ethical, sustainable ateliers left. So it was a challenge to find the right one. We did find one we thought we were going to work with, but then some stuff happened. So do you want to take it away and explain that whole process? Because how you handled it was something that I am incredibly proud of.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And to be honest, Selena, I think this was the experience that bonded us together.
Yeah.
As a
The
team.
slight trauma bond, but also, yeah.
Basically, June of 2024, that was our first trip to Spain. And our intention with that trip was to dot our I's, cross our T's, basically move forward because we were planning on launching in summer of 2024. We go out there and it was a really good trip, meeting the painter, of course, who helped us support with the painting of the fans and everything. But then we actually ended up going down to meet the Atelier and our production partner. And I feel like we quickly kind of realized the vibe was off. Like Selena said, artisanal fan making is somewhat of a declining or lost art of sorts. So there's not a ton. That gives a bit of leverage and a space where they know they have a lot of clients, a lot of options, and a lot of really high-end clients. And not to spill tea, but we were speaking with ateliers who work with like top luxury brands and museums and stuff. I say quality like quality, and they know that their clientele is at that level. So coming in with like a smaller order quantity, group of younger looking women and everything, I really feel like we weren't getting the respect that we deserved. At the end of the day, respect for me as a business owner is so important. The foot that you start on is an indicator of how the relationship is going to move forward and everything. We need to make sure that the standards and expectations to mitigate any issues are agreed upon. Transparently, we weren't getting any of that. It was disheartening, disappointing, and it was a tough 2-hour car ride back to Madrid. We had to just kind of sit and think for a minute. Do we want to push forward with this launch, with this arbitrary deadline, timeline that we'd say, because I want to launch right now? Or is it better to take a step back, make sure the foundation is what we want it to be, so that when we do launch, we're launching correctly? And ultimately, we had to make the decision to pause end our relationship with that Atelier and go back to the drawing board. But I think to what I spoke about before, your network, your community, the people you're working with are so important. So between Selena and our painter, the people who we met, we were able to find another Atelier who amazing, woman-owned. Like I mentioned, generations and generations of her family had worked and owned that Atelier. And it was just so inspiring to work with them. Looking at the samples that we had before in 2024 and the products that we have today, I know we made the right decision. My heart feels safe with who we're working with. It makes so much more sense, even just who we are as a brand, the story that we could tell with them, so much better aligned. So not an easy decision. Again, Selena, I appreciate you for navigating that with me. Not gonna lie, I remember I shed a couple of tears at the cart. It was real. It was very much what we were going through at that moment. But I think that makes this period that we're going through and this launch even more meaningful.
Yeah. I feel so proud of how you handled it. But if you don't mind, I would love to spill some more tea because what happened was wild. We're not going to name names, so everything will be fine. But okay, paint the picture, right? We were going to launch that summer. And yes, you mentioned it was kind of an arbitrary deadline, but we were so excited. We were ready to work with this atelier. We were ready to sign a contract. And what happened was we drove down to the city. It was a 2-hour car ride. And walking into the meeting, it was me, it was Valerie, and the painter, who is also female. So it was 3 females. Then the atelier owner is a man, of course. And he spent a lot of time explaining the process to us, which was really nice. But then it just went downhill from there. The first red flag was that he refused to sign a contract and he refused to have a contract, which I think is crazy. Especially for a production order, you need to know what the prices are. You need to know when you're getting this. You need to know the payment terms. So that was already a red flag. And then the second thing was, I remember the payment terms were insane too. I think he wanted almost all of it, which is crazy. Usually I would say 50-50 is fair, like 50% to get started and then 50% upon order completion. It was just wild because he was quite civil up until that point. And then I just remember he got so worked up, and I don't speak Spanish. You can just tell when someone's agitated. And I think the Spanish and the Italian cultures, they get very emotional. But it's just like 3 females and this guy that's starting to raise his voice, and you're like, what is going on? This is so unprofessional. I just remember being so angry that we were treated that way. I don't know if it was because it was 3 females doing this meeting, or if he thought we were a small fish because he had these quote unquote bigger contracts. But that's just not how you do business. If you don't have the capacity or the time to take us on, then don't even take the meeting and just say, hey, I'm sorry, I just don't have the time. That would have been so much more respectful than stringing us along, doing this whole like, I'm not going to sign a contract. You got to pay me everything up front.
I feel like he was trying to confuse us. He was a lawyer, so he was doing like lawyer talk, which also made the fact that he wasn't trying to sign a contract insane. So I was like, this isn't right, you know? So it was just madness. And maybe it was meant to be that jarring, so there was no question as to who we needed to work with. I really do believe everything happens for a reason. And like I said, I can barely even be mad about that situation anymore just because I'm so happy with where we are, with the products that we have. It works out the way it's meant to.
Totally. It's a complete blessing in disguise. We completely dodged a bullet. That being said, I know you shared that you were really upset, and rightfully so. It's easy in those moments to be like, oh, I really wanted this to happen, so maybe I'll just move forward. Or it's easy also to have that scarcity mindset where it's like, oh, there's not a lot of atelier options, so maybe I should just go with him. And honestly, I think he knew that, and he was playing into that too and really pressuring us from a time perspective as well. How did you go from that to then being like, you know what? I don't know for sure that there's going to be a better option out there, but I believe there is. So I'm going to say no to this, move forward in a way where I feel like I can find someone better. How did you do that? Because I think a lot of people might struggle to get from that place of disappointment and then just picking themselves back up again.
Yeah, that's a good question. Part of my personality, I'm not the most risk-averse person. So if it makes sense and is necessary to do, I'm okay with that. The whole idea of scarcity mindset, that's something I'm very actively trying not to buy into. Especially in the fashion world, it's really important to keep that in mind. There's so many brands out there. There's so many people doing so many things. in a world of billions of people, plenty of consumers and customers for all of us, especially for all of us to do it correctly. Beyond that, the story that we're telling here, it's not uncommon. I was pretty confident and resound at that time that I wasn't going to let him define the journey. And a piece of advice that I got that was really important that I learned a while ago was just that the best time to launch is when you're ready. So what we were saying, like there was that timeline. Fans are obviously somewhat of the seasonal sensory. I'm here to also fight back against that. I think we can use fans throughout the entire year. But obviously, spring, summertime, you would see a big boom for that. So like it was a time constraints and heavy investment, high hopes. But I knew at the time that it wasn't in vain. I had already met Selena. We had found our painter. We already had the design created. It was just a matter of finding somebody else. And in a world of 7 billion people, I would be so shocked if it was only one. Even if it's just like 3, 4, or 5 in the world, it could just be understanding that and being willing to push back the timeline. I think that's actually the hardest part, being willing to push back the timeline. I'd also begun talking about it. I was so ready, but like retrospectively, maybe not. So like sometimes having more time is also a good thing. Just knowing that the right time to launch would be when I was actually ready. So if I wasn't ready, then it was okay to take a beat. And it was.
Love that. And I'm, again, just so proud of how you handled it. I love how you said you're not going to let him decide. This is your business. You are in the driver's seat. And also now we have this product that we are so proud of. It's so amazing. And so everything really does happen for a reason. But anyways, we have billions and billions of people on the planet. So there's, of course, someone else that can help. And we found this amazing female-founded Atelier instead, and it's just been such a dream.
Sometimes when it feels right and everything, then it actually is right. When it doesn't feel right, you have to follow your intuition. I think as a business owner, you strengthen your intuition, of course, with your learning, but you still have to rely on it. If something doesn't feel right, you can't ignore that feeling, because I think it's better starting this way and moving forward with people who we feel like we can actually build a long-lasting partnership with.
Yes. The other thing you're doing that is also really inspiring, and you alluded to, is the fact that you're working a 9-to-5 job that you're really passionate about, but also you're building this brand you're equally passionate about. So the magical question is, how do you manage both, and how do you just stay sane?
So like one of those things where like, everyone's different. I feel like everybody like manages their time and is stressed a little different. I'm pretty good at compartmentalizing when I'm doing like my 9-to-5 job. I'm doing that. You guys are actually in my Valerie space. Half the time I'm doing Valerie work, I just come over to my couch just for the separation. Being in a city like Austin has also been kind of cool for that. There's a number of people out here who also work 9-to-5s and have creative endeavors. Seeing that around me also was like inspiring and energized me to keep going. Environment and like the people we have around is like really important. I am trying to improve my habits. I've gotten back to working out consistently and my meals and everything and like sleeping on time. There were some times where I was super out of whack, and I'm not going to lie to y'all. That's a reality. And life kind of ebbs and flows that way. I also saw this quote saying that God will bless you with your dreams the same way that you kind of got them. If you're living your life with these good habits and everything, then that's how your dreams will come about, and that's how you'll maintain them as well. That resonated because the truth is I'm so busy now, but hopefully when values becomes what it is and will become, I will be so much more busy. And I don't want to go into that with bad habits. I've learned work-life balance. I've learned how to prioritize myself, how to make sure I'm taking care of myself physically, mentally, emotionally. All that's really important, because otherwise you're one-way track towards burnout, and we don't want that. It's not been easy, but I think it's doable. So don't give up on your dreams.
Yeah, I love that. And it's like you said, there's seasons, right? There's seasons where you're more busy at work, seasons where you're more busy with your side hustle. But throughout it all, just having good habits, setting yourself up for success. Also, allowing yourself a rot day if you need to just rot in bed or on the couch. Like, those are therapeutic. So let's talk a little bit about working together. What was it like working together? We set up your business, we developed your product, we did your sourcing, we did your go-to-market strategy. There was so much we covered. Throughout all of that, what was it like, and what were some of your biggest takeaways or learnings?
Invaluable. Like how I don't know, it's really hard, honestly, even quantify how helpful you've been. Even going back to the question that we had before about balancing a 9-to-5 and starting a business, it is so hard doing this on your own. And it's so much easier to dream something to actually execute it. So I had the launch your brand, just basically like a step-by-step with handouts and sheets and all these different, like, use this discount for QuickBooks. And it's like, oh my God, thank you. Because there's no way I could have done that myself, to be honest. Beyond that, the expertise that you brought, I had so many questions. And thank you for answering all my questions. It's one of those things where the more you learn, the more you realize there is to learn. And I really did appreciate how you were willing to also investigate with me. So valuable is like the word I keep saying. That's how I feel. It's kind of quantifiable, like how impactful it's been, because I just don't know. But it even meant like our painter, for example, or like there's so many steps would have been so much more difficult if I didn't have your partnership and like we weren't working together. Just on a personal level, after working together for like 2 years, like develop a friendship. You've just been such an encouraging force and energy for this entire brand. Even periods where I'm a little MIA and everything, just still check in and make sure I'm still moving forward and doing the things. Having that accountability partner during this process is so important. It's easy to get overwhelmed or like it on the back burner for too long. Having someone who's also invested and actually cares and everything. So at this point, I feel like you care. I appreciate that because this could have just been a job for you. But I think the person you are and just the relationship that we built with this is become more than that. So I truly appreciate your partnership and shout out to everything that you're doing. Anybody who be so lucky to work with you.
Oh, thank you. That just warms my heart so much. That was so sweet. I feel like my toxic or not so toxic trait is with all my clients. I care so much and then I just become friends with all of them, which is so fun.
It's a beautiful thing. The last time we were in Spain, we saw one of your friends and we were talking about like important it is to build creative community because some of my closest friends are creatives. And it's just because we can relate on that level and we can support each other and we understand that plight and that journey, the hustle of creating. It makes sense. And I'm sure the way I feel about you is how they feel about you as well. So you're a great person to have in community. So
thank you. I could listen to you talk about me and gas me up all day. This will be my meditation soundtrack in the morning now. I will just listen to that.
But like literally, Selena, we have been on a journey. I mean it.
I know. And I mean it when I say I'm genuinely so proud of you. It's been years in the making and I am so happy with where you're at and I'm just so proud of what you've developed. So you should be so, so, so proud.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Cool. Well, let's do a quick fire round to end this off. So what is the best advice you've ever received? And also on the flip side, what is the worst advice you've ever received?
Best advice I've ever received was follow my gut. I will say I'm a Pisces, so I do think my intuition is pretty strong. But to be honest, it really hasn't steered me wrong in my life yet. Like I said before, I think everything happens for a reason. Fortunately, some of our misfortunes and everything really do align us with what we're meant to be and to end up doing, even if it's just like a realignment or a lesson that we need to learn. That's important and everything to also take away. I have another one I want to say though from my sister. It started from an argument because we were talking about the leather pouches and we were going back and forth as to like, I should have my word mark or the logo on it. And she was like, listen, I have an opinion and you have a vision and everybody has an opinion. And that was so real. It took me aback. Sometimes you forget how wise your younger siblings can be. That was actually such great advice for me just because I found this journey can be a lonely one at sometimes. It can be a bit solitary. So sometimes like it does feel good to like ask people questions and like get their feedback. What do you think about this? What do you think about this? But sometimes you know what you want to do and like you just want like a sounding board. That's why we probably got in an argument because I already knew what I wanted the answer to be,
Yeah.
I'm sure that's going to ring true throughout my career. Everybody has an opinion, but with what I'm building, I know what my vision is and everything. So it's just about holding firm to that.
Yeah, I love that. Tell her I say hi and tell her that was very wise.
It's definitely like she told me to say hi to you too. We were FaceTiming this morning.
Oh, cute. And flip side, worst advice you've ever received?
I think the worst piece of advice I've ever got is just stay where you're comfortable. It's really important to grow. There's a number of different examples throughout my life where I've heard that sentiment, if not those exact words. But it's very easy to be in your comfort zone because it's comfortable. But that's not where growth happens. You can work your 9 to 5. You can map out your life there and everything, but you're not really 100% in control there, number one. And two, there also is a ceiling to where you could probably grind. When you're building a brand, like Val Eves can truly become so much at anything. And to be honest, that inspires me more than anything. And with that, a vision and dreams that are big, yeah, it's not always comfortable. It's very uncomfortable sometimes, but like you have to take those risks. You have to step out of your comfort zone to actually get to what you want in this life. We only live one time. And at the end of the day, I feel like it's just the legacy that you leave behind. So I feel like Values has the potential to have a lovely legacy. So I'm willing to get uncomfortable for Values.
And so you might have an obvious answer for it, but I wanted to ask you anyways, what is your go-to fashion accessory?
Okay. So obviously handband, love them. Get yours, values.com. Real answer, obviously handbands. I've been wearing them a lot. I have like my clips next to me. I have like one of my favorite accessories. I gave it to my photographer. He's doing like some product shots right now. I have like these pearl chains. I would like put on them or you can like put on your like belt. We'll be like releasing some more accessories down the line for those, but love fans. Once you notice them, then you start seeing them everywhere. So listen, pins, I think they're like one of the coolest ways to like accessorize and just add a little extra sauce to an outfit. Like I mentioned before, I love like vintage pieces. So of course, it's got to make it fit the right way. And I think brooches are a really cool way to do that, but also add like additional shape or just interest in the piece. I would choose that as my second option.
And what is one bold change you hope to see in the fashion industry in this next decade?
Absolutely. Down with fast fashion, obviously. I think things naturally progress as they do. Most consumers have the appetite for fast fashion as they did a couple years back. We're kind of wising up a bit to the fact that it's not more affordable long term and everything. We're not getting good quality clothing. And we're actually kind of being finessed a little bit by the industry. They don't think that we notice that is not good quality, or they don't care that we notice that is not good quality. And either way, I'm not going to be part of that. I think there's a number of different brands that are coming out who are free to resound not to be part of that. Like I mentioned before, I think the future of fashion lies with sustainability. I think the future of luxury is sustainability. It's not just about buying sustainable things. It's also think about longevity, buying secondhand, buying vintage. Intentionality is probably the future of fashion.
Great. Well, I think that's a lovely place to end. Thank you so much for coming on and confessing all of your lessons. We loved it. Just to wrap up, I'm going to have everything linked down below, but do you want to tell people how they can stay connected and support you?
Yes, absolutely. Values.com. We're live right now, but we're also relaunching our website really soon and everything. So that's really exciting. You can find us on social media on all the different platforms, Val Eats Fashion. We're creating an air of luxury this summer, so I'm excited for you all to be a part of it.
This was such a pleasure. So proud of you again. And to anyone listening, these fans are beautiful. They are timeless. So go get yours before they run out.
All right, thank you so much, Selena. And thanks everyone for listening.